Incredible twist. A doctor's life changed forever. When a flower seller's heartfelt plea surfaced, Dr. Emily Lawson sunk into her office chair, the weight of the world pressing heavily on her shoulders. She could hear the muted sounds of the clinic bustling just beyond her door, a nurse riffling through charts, the beeping of machines, a patient's anxious voice calling out for her. Each sound felt like a reminder of the lives she was responsible for, the lives she worked tirelessly to save. Yet behind her white coat resided an emptiness that gnawed at her spirit. Each day, the small town of Willow Creek watched her closely, as if her every move was magnified under a glass dome. They expected her to rise, not only in medicine, but also to fulfill the unspoken dreams of her family that roared behind the farm's silos, demanding her attention. Why did I choose this path, she thought, a familiar wave of self-doubt surging through her mind. It was suffocating. The expectations of her family weighed as heavily as the latest batch of paperwork piled on her desk. Her mother's dreams of gardening, now lost in the dust of a neglected farmhouse, flickered in her memory. Would she ever escape the scrutiny, the gasping sighs, the disapproving glances of her father? The dual burdens tightened their grip on her soul, and fears slipped in uninvited. Would her life always exist in the shadow of obligation, or could she find a way to reclaim it? Before she could unravel this tangled web, a chaotic afternoon at the clinic shifted her reality. As she rushed past patients with growing impatience, she nearly collided with Maria, the flower seller who had become a colorful fixture outside the grocery store. There was something palpable in Maria's presence, a stillness amidst the storm. "I want to share something with you," she said, her sun-kissed skin glowing like the petals of her blooms. Emily, burdened and distracted, hesitated. The plea in Maria's eyes struck a chord within her, a deep yearning for connection, for understanding. As Maria recounted her deceased husband's dream of a community garden, a place meant not just to sow seeds, but to bring people together, Emily was suddenly overwhelmed. The question echoed in her mind. What legacy am I building? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The words mingled with a growing storm in her heart. Emily's thoughts spiraled, recalling the boxes of her mother's sketches she'd discovered tucked away in the storage room the other day. Each page ignited her own unfulfilled yearnings, shaking her foundation and tugging at her heartstrings. How could she let her mother's dreams remain dormant in her wake? Torn between the respect of the life she had built and the surfacing desire to cultivate her roots, Emily felt trapped. Now in the soft light of the clinic, the walls closed in and dread seized her. The whispers of insufficientness, mingling with Maria's story, suffocated her resolve. The enormity of stepping outside her niche filled every corner of her mind. Desperation gripped her chest as she contemplated the possibility of awakening a part of her she'd buried deep. Would her revelation bring the truth she sought, or would it spell the downfall of the life woven with her family's expectations? The anxiety coiled tighter, forcing her to question everything. At that moment, a silence settled within her. Was she ready to confront the truth, the fear of disappointing her family while forging her own path? And there, suspended between her two worlds, the seeds of a transformation trembled in the depths of her unease, pressing her forward into an uncertain future. The clinic buzzed around her, yet Emily remained ensnared in her own thoughts. The gentle hum of medical equipment mixed with the faint scent of antiseptic, but her world had taken on a sharp focus. Her heart raced as she contemplated the gravity of her next steps. Seated at her desk, she felt a weight settle on her chest, urging her to demand clarity from the shadows swirling around her. Reclaim. The word echoed in her mind. It wasn't enough to merely exist within the parameters outlined by her profession and her family. Something was awakening within her, a desire to step beyond the white coat and the clinical setting, to embrace her passion for art, a passion long neglected. The sun-drenched garden Maria envisioned seemed to spring forth in her mind, urging her to explore similar aspirations. In the following days, Emily observed her surroundings with newfound intensity. Every patient interaction became a mirror that reflected not just their struggles but her own. She began to notice the nuances in their stories, how hope often blossomed from despair. One patient, a young artist battling depression, immersed her in discussions about achieving creative freedom. Their conversations sparked a flicker of inspiration within Emily, illuminating the path toward reconciliation of her dreams and duties. Feeling the urge to clarify her thoughts, she dug deep into her memory of her mother's sketches. That evening, she returned to the farmhouse, dust motes dancing in the fading sunlight slicing through the window. Boxes lined the walls, remnants of her mother's aspirations waiting to be re-examined. Emily carefully opened one and gazed at her mother's delicate drawings, each line a testament to a dream that never took root. But beneath the nostalgia, irritation flickered. "Why have I waited so long to recognize my own potential?" she questioned angrily. Reason and resentment intertwined as she realized how many years she'd hidden her artistic ambitions beneath medical textbooks and familial expectations. With renewed determination, she took one of the sketches, a flower in bloom, and began to recreate it on canvas, surprised by the strength and prevention of her own hands. The textures felt strange and foreign against her fingertips, yet exhilarating. Each stroke released her tensions, unearthing long-buried emotions. She painted not just for herself, but to honor her mother's vision, blending her own unmet desires with the mosaic of familial legacy. The act became a revelation, a reclaiming. Weeks passed, and Emily found herself diving deeper into both her medical practice and painting, leveraging the emotional connections she was cultivating. The clinic still demanded her time and attention, but art offered a counterbalance. An imbalance was starting to resolve as she shared her artistic journey with Maria, who encouraged Emily to consider a small exhibit, a blooming legacy, combining the art and stories of her patients. Determined, Emily found herself working longer hours, only to trip lightly as she fantasized about the potential of intertwining both worlds. However, doubt still crawled through her veins, whispering trepidations each night when she laid down to sleep. Could she genuinely balance her life as a doctor and an artist? Would her family ever accept, let alone embrace, her choices if she pursued this artistic path? The weight of impending decisions rested heavy on her. The closer she got to her exhibit, the more pressure increased on both fronts. Just as she began to find her way, the complexities of her identity tumbled forth, demanding resolution. And then came the moment that shattered her newfound peace. A call from her father, upset about more than just her choices. "You've abandoned your duties. This isn't how I raised you." Her heart raced. It was time to face the truth. How would she navigate this mighty disconnect when every fiber of her being craved authenticity? The decision loomed over her, waiting to unfold, and she knew she stood at the precipice of everything she'd ever feared. This would be the defining moment. The time had come for her to confront not just her father's expectations, but the truth about herself as well. What awaited her in the embrace of her family's expectations, or perhaps on the arduous path of self-discovery? Emily stood in her small studio, the unfinished canvas erupting with vivid colors only she could understand. Her heart thudded against her ribs as her father's voice reverberated in her mind. "Abandoned your duties." Those words weighed her down like an anchor. Could she be both the dutiful daughter and the passionate artist? The dichotomy tormented her, an internal battle erupting at the intersection of familial loyalty and personal fulfillment. Pushing her frustrations aside, Emily focused on the canvas in front of her, determined to infuse her emotions into the strokes. Each dip of the brush formed a connection between her past and present, an attempt to embody the arc of her journey. But doubt lingered beneath the surface. What if the art failed to resonate with anyone? What if her father's words echoed through the exhibit, ushering in judgment rather than acceptance? Ignoring the tension in her chest, she connected with her young artist patient's story, using it as fuel. He had transformed his scars into art, proclaiming that darkness could illuminate truth. Inspired, Emily decided she would embrace her struggles as part of her narrative. She dipped her brush into the paint again, allowing a surge of passion to manifest on the canvas. A week later, her exhibit date loomed closer, and the shadow of expectation loomed like a tempest overhead. The anticipation weighed down on her, intensifying her restlessness. Her phone rang incessantly, a relentless buzzing amidst her chaotic thoughts. With a heavy sigh, she answered another call from her father, steeling herself for yet another confrontation. "Emily, you know how much your mother expected from you. You're throwing it all away," he insisted, frustration evident in his tone. As he continued to speak, Emily felt a surge of anger. "Am I not allowed to forge my own path? Does artistry make me less of a doctor?" She cut him off, reclaiming her voice, claiming. The silence that followed felt monumental. She realized she had spent years silencing her own desires, trying to mold herself into a reflection of her family's aspirations. "If I'm to honor your expectations, who honors mine?" The words ignited a flicker of defiance within her, and for the first time she felt powerful. She had a choice, and her choice mattered. As the conversation morphed into an uncomfortable standoff, Emily felt her convictions solidify. "I am proud of my work as a doctor, and I want to pursue my art. I will make my mark in both worlds." Another tense silence loomed, and she hung up, sweat forming on her brow. Still locked in the uncertainty of her journey, a knock at the studio door jolted her. It was Maria, her supportive friend, and the one person who had seen her evolution up close. "You're glowing," Maria remarked, stepping inside. "I had a conversation with my father," Emily confessed. "It wasn't easy, but I finally said what needed to be said. I feel different." Maria smiled knowingly, sensing the shift that had occurred within Emily. "Good. Now let's focus on this exhibit. Your art deserves to be out in the world. It's time to bloom." Reinvigorated by Maria's encouragement, Emily began planning for the exhibit launch, considering how she could share not only her art, but the stories behind it. It became vital for her to convey the emotional resonance of her patients and her own narrative of self-discovery. As she delved into her preparations, Emily realized the exhibit could represent more than just her conflict with her father. It could bridge the gap between her identities as a doctor and an artist, merging her healing touch with her creative spirit. Yet, just as her ambitions began to crystallize, a shocking thought crossed her mind. What if participating in the exhibit led to professional consequences? Would her colleagues take her seriously? Would they see her as a doctor or just another artist? The tension tangled inside her, the reconciliation of her dual identities hanging precariously in the air. She stood in front of her canvas, brush poised, uncertainty swirling like the colors on her palette. As she drove the brush forward, her heart raced with an exhilarating mix of fear and determination. Would she stand steady amidst the inevitable judgments when the show opened? Deep down, she knew. The time to rise, to create, to embrace her complexities had arrived. The world awaited a blooming legacy. But would she have the strength to reveal herself fully? With her heart pounding, she prepared to face the critical gaze of her future. Emily stood in the midst of her studio, the aroma of paint mingling with the faint hint of linseed oil, grounding her amidst the tornado of her thoughts. As the opening date of her exhibit approached, each brushstroke felt like a proclamation not only of her identity, but of her uncharted aspirations. The vibrant chaos of color on the canvas was a reflection of her tumultuous emotions, joy interspersed with fear. She stared at what she had produced so far, pondering ways to delve deeper into her experiences, to unveil the layers beneath the surface. With every session, she found herself wrestling with the boundaries of her talent. What if the exhibit failed to connect with her audience, just like her conversation with her father? She had just begun to find her voice, and already she was haunted by the dread of exposure. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and opened her contacts. One name stood out, the boy who had inspired her to start creating again. She hesitated, but then decided to call Michael, her young patient who had turned his struggles into art. When he answered, his breathless excitement lit up the phone. "Emily, I can't wait to see your show," he exclaimed, his voice filled with unfiltered joy. "Thank you, Michael. I hope to do justice to what we've talked about," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "Your art is going to change lives," he said with an innocent conviction that stirred something within her. She realized he was right. Her canvas could be a bridge built from the struggles they both faced, a place where healing and creativity intertwined. Encouraged by their conversation, Emily returned to her work with a renewed sense of purpose. She began conceptualizing a new piece, a large mural that would portray not just her own journey, but the collective resilience she had witnessed in her patients. This mural would serve as the centerpiece at the exhibit, a testament to the duality of her existence as both a healer and an artist. Days turned into nights as she poured her heart into this new creation. Yet with each passing moment, self-doubt crept closer. What if this new direction alienated her colleagues? Would they reject her if they saw her as merely an artist, rather than a physician? Every nerve of her being urged her to step back, to play it safe. But a quiet voice, perhaps the one she had seldom listened to, told her to take the plunge. It was then that she decided to confront her insecurities head-on. Instead of avoiding the conversation with her colleagues, she would gather them after her exhibit and share her journey, the struggles, the fears, the healing. It was risky, but it felt essential. Who was she without her story? As her exhibition date drew near, Emily felt adrenaline pulse through her veins. She busily finalized details, constructed the narrative around each painting and its emotional context, and forged connections that bridged patient and artist. Each deliberate action carved deeper grooves in her developing identity. On one particularly nerve-wracking evening, as she stepped back to analyze the mural, an unexpected knock shattered her concentration. It was Maria, looking surprisingly serious. "Emily, there's something you need to know," Maria said, her tone alarming Emily. The uncertainty in her friend's eyes sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "What is it?" she asked, feeling an adrenaline surge but also a pang of fear. Maria hesitated, exhaling slowly. "I overheard some colleagues discussing your exhibit. Some aren't taking it well. They think it undermines your career as a doctor." Panic rippled through Emily, each heartbeat echoing the weight of Maria's words. Could her journey, her art, and her healing touch be so easily dismissed? Would she have to choose yet again between two parts of herself? With the exhibit just days away and decisions looming, Emily faced a dilemma that could alter her life. Should she react defensively, or should she seize this moment of vulnerability to stand fully in her truth? As the tension thickened in the room, she contemplated her next move, the stakes higher than ever. Would she find the courage to confront her doubters, or retreat from the judgment that awaited her? The answer hung precariously before her, testing her resolve yet again, urging her to answer the pivotal question. How would she define herself in the face of adversity? Emily paced the studio, each step echoing her inner conflict. The prospect of exhibiting her art had transformed into a battleground of identity. With every brushstroke, she forged her narrative, yet Maria's revelation loomed over her like a storm cloud. Was she truly prepared to confront the negativity that threatened to unravel the progress she had made? The very heart of her struggles was under attack, and she now faced the uncomfortable reality of potential rejection from those she had respected as colleagues. She noticed the large mural she had been dedicated to, its colors vibrant and bold, a visual representation of her journey. This canvas illustrated not only her personal growth, but bore the weight of her patients' stories too. Each brushstroke a testament to resilience, a light against the shadows of mental illness. This artwork was meant to be a celebration of healing, not a point of contention. Yet, self-doubt crept in like a thief in the night. What if her colleagues' skepticism wormed its way into her exhibit, creating divides instead of connections? Would the mural reflect her work as a doctor, or diminish it? Without hesitation, she scrubbed her hands clean of paint and picked up her phone once more. She compelled herself to call Jessica, her mentor from medical school. Maybe a voice that had guided her through difficult decisions would illuminate the path ahead. "Hey Emily, how's the art coming along?" Jessica answered, bright and cheerful. Taking a deep breath, Emily ventured into her truth. It's complicated, Jess. I'm scared. Some colleagues don't understand why I'm combining my art with my medical practice." "Change always brings resistance," Jessica replied, her tone shifting to one of understanding. You're navigating a dual vocation, artist and doctor. That's a powerful combination. Have you thought about why this matters to you? Emily hesitated. Why did it matter? Could she articulate the depths of this merging of identities? I feel like art allows me to empathize better with my patients. It's the same healing process for them, isn't it? Just a different medium? Exactly, Jessica affirmed. You're not abandoning your responsibilities as a doctor. You're enhancing your ability to connect. Let them see that. The conversation sparked a flame within her, a determination mixed with clarity, igniting a surge of creative energy. This was about more than her exhibit. It was about redefining what it meant to truly heal. A merging of art and medicine could break barriers. She knew risk was part of any transformation. Each step into obscurity became clear now, filled with purpose. Drawing strength from their dialogue, Emily returned to her mural, this time painting with intention. Each stroke was not just an act of creation, but a rebel yell against limitations imposed by professional norms. The idea of improving lives through art fueled her passion. Each color brought forth a haunting beauty, layers of pain and triumph woven together. As she stepped back, breathless from the emotional reveal present in her work, the door burst open again. It was Michael. The boy, full of energy and spirit, rushed in, eyes gleaming. "Emily, I'm so excited to see the mural," he exclaimed, infectious enthusiasm wrapping around her. "Michael, do you think it will help people understand?" she questioned, a glimmer of uncertainty creeping back in. "Of course," he replied fervently. "You've got to share your heart. They'll see what you feel." His words reverberated through her, crystallizing her resolve. She realized the stakes were higher than personal fear. This mural represented a potential dialogue about understanding mental health through the lens of creativity. Then, as Michael began to inquire about specific elements of the mural, Emily felt empowered. "Do you see the colors here?" she began, discussing the symbolism woven into her art. As she explained, she witnessed his curious eyes absorbing not only her message, but also the joy inherent in the act of creation. But just as she felt fortified, dread seeped back in. What if no one else understood? What if the colleagues who doubted her never saw her truth? Would she falter under their disapproval? That night, sleep evaded her. As Emily lay awake, her mind churned with the permutations of the coming days. Would her exhibit flourish as a conduit for healing, or would it collapse under scrutiny? With more questions than answers swirling, her resolve pushed through the shadows of uncertainty. Tomorrow she would not only unveil her art, she would redefine who she was in the eyes of the world. The night slipped away, and her mind clung to one final thought. It was time to take her stand. In the fragile silence of the night, a determination blended with apprehension awakened a new fear within her, one that lingered over the threshold of the unknown. Could she confront her critics, genuinely revealing the heart of her fight, or would she waver, allowing their opinions to dictate her path? The time had come to face her truth, and the decision would shape not only her exhibit, but every facet of her evolving identity. Dawn broke like a promise, stirring Emily from a restless slumber. The sun cast a soft glow over her studio, illuminating the vibrant mural that loomed large on the wall, her battles, triumphs, and aspirations captured with unwavering fervor. Today wasn't just any day. It was her moment to step into the fray, to expose her heart in a way she had never dared before. Feeling an urgency pulsating through her veins, she dialed Jessica's number with an instinctive need for affirmation. After a few rings, her mentor's warm voice broke the static of anticipation. "Emily, you sound different this morning. What's going on?" "I'm ready," Emily replied, surprise flooding her at her own clarity. "Ready to show the mural, ready to stand behind what it represents. But Jess, what if no one gets it?" "Then you explain it until they do," Jessica encouraged, firm yet gentle. "Remember, this isn't just art. This is you. The connection you share with your patients, the empathy you embody, it all breeds understanding." With Jessica's encouragement anchoring her, Emily took a deep breath, picturing the murmur of her colleagues in that cold clinical gallery. Each mental image intimidated her further, but within the core of that fear, she felt a flicker of defiance. This wasn't merely a showcase of colors, it was a plea for recognition in both her roles, an artistic marriage of science and emotion. She arrived early, the gallery still silent as she adjusted the lights and positioned the setup. Each piece gleamed with potential, yet her lingering doubts were incessant echoes. She glanced at her mural one last time, taking in the myriad hues and the stories they encapsulated. Fear surged anew. A visceral need to protect her creation coursed through her. "Emily!" A voice broke her reverie. It was Maria, her rival. "Nice mural. I hope you realize symbolism doesn't make a psychiatrist." The remark felt like a carefully aimed arrow. "Art is part of healing. It's a bridge, Maria." Emily steadied her voice, yet her heart raced. "Sure, but some people think it's a waste of time," Maria retorted, her tone dripping with mockery. Emily's stomach twisted, but instead of unraveling, she sought grounding in the very essence of her mural. "Then let them think that," she countered, firming her resolve. "If we can't understand mental illness through creativity, how will we ever make true connections?" Maria stepped back, perhaps surprised by the fire in her voice. Their exchange lingered uncomfortably in the air, yet Emily felt a sort of exhilaration rise within her. Each word she spoke affirmed her commitment. It was an act of defiance, reclaiming her narrative in front of an audience that might have easily dismissed her. As attendees entered and mingled, Emily felt their energy, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and indifference casting shadows over her. She moved through the crowd, engaging in conversations, explaining the mural's intricate layers. Some engaged eagerly, while others remained aloof. Each reaction stabbed at her resolve, but she pressed on, her passion illuminating their doubts. Then, she spotted Michael weaving through the throng, his youthful enthusiasm contagious. "Emily!" he shouted, beaming as he approached. "I loved it! You really poured out your heart!" "Thanks," she replied, the sincerity in his eyes glimmering like sunlight. In that moment, she was reminded of her purpose: to inspire, challenge, and heal. It was enough to silence the nagging critics in her mind, even Maria. But then a group of her colleagues approached, their faces painted with skepticism. "Emily, a doctor and an artist. How can you reach your patient's needs if you're sidetracked by this?" one asked. Their question struck at the very core she had defended, igniting a raw emotional response. Did they not see? "My art isn't a distraction, it's an extension of my practice," she exclaimed, her voice trembling yet steady. "It's about understanding and reaching those who struggle in darkness. When I paint, I am not just expressing myself, I am creating a dialogue." Silence enveloped them, an uncomfortable cauldron of quiet that infused her anxiety with a compelling energy. Emily realized she was no longer talking to win them over. This was about hers, and her patient's truth. As she awaited their response, the gravity of her vulnerability hung in the air, amplified by the tension pulsing in the gallery. Would they grasp her message or dismiss her entirely? Uncertainty loomed heavily over her. Would she leave this day feeling validated, or would the jagged shards of doubt find their way back into her heart? A moment of reckoning approached, as they slowly began to shift their expressions, an enigmatic anticipation threading through the crowd. But just then, a flower seller burst into the gallery, breathless and wide-eyed. "Everyone! You have to hear this." Emily's heart raced at this unexpected interruption. What could possibly unfold next? The flower seller's voice sliced through the thick tension like a knife. Emily's heart quickened as she turned to face the unexpected intruder, a mix of curiosity and dread swirling within her. The gallery's atmosphere shifted, eyes diverted from her mural to the newcomer, aglow with a sudden interest. The flower seller was an older woman, her apron dusted with soil, her expression brimming with urgency. "Please listen. I've seen too many people struggling in silence. There's something I need to share, something that can unite us all." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had thought this day was about her struggle, her art, but now it seemed to take a different turn. Her colleagues, previously skeptical, now leaned in, curiosity buzzing in the air. "Go ahead, one of Emily's colleagues urged, crossing his arms but shifting his weight forward. The seller took a steadying breath, glancing around the room filled with professionals. I work with many who can't express their pain in words, people from all walks of life. I've delivered flowers to hospitals, homes, and shelters. I hear their stories. They need someone to open up the conversation. That's where art comes in. Emily felt a tentative hope form around her heart. Could she really be a voice for the voiceless? The thought struck her with a fervor, igniting a new determination. You see, flowers are more than just beauty. They carry stories. A bouquet can spark a memory, a connection, a healing moment. Your mural, you may not realize it, but it speaks the same language. It says, "I see you," the flower seller continued, her voice steady now, as the message sank deeper into the listening crowd. Emily's mind raced. Each statement from this woman resonated powerfully with her own intentions. The synergy was undeniable. This is it, she thought. This is how I bridge my patients' stories with art. The seller continued. Art isn't frivolous. It's a lifeline. So many are trapped in a cycle of silence, but when someone expresses pain through colors, we can finally start to understand. Emily, you have the tools to reach beyond the traditional walls of therapy. Every word wrapped itself around Emily's resolve, fueling a fire within her as tangible as the paint on her mural. Was this her moment to rise beyond being merely a doctor or an artist? She was both, each role weaving into the other, crafting a richer narrative that could heal. As the flower seller's speech resonated, Emily caught glances among her colleagues. Faces once carved with skepticism now softened with curiosity, even admiration. This was her chance to solidify her position. She stepped forward, a wave of confidence sweeping over her like a gust of fresh air. She began, her voice filled with newfound purpose. I want to collaborate with those who feel unseen. This mural is an invitation to share, to heal, to express. Each word crystallized a mission she had felt slowly crystallizing within her. But Maria's snide smile returned, poised to deflect. And what makes you think your art can transcend the medical protocols we've established? You think abstract colors can guide us to understanding? The challenge was clear, but something deep within Emily had shifted. Because, she answered quietly but firmly, if we can't connect on an emotional level, how can we truly heal? We have to expand beyond the confines of what we think we know. A tense silence enveloped them. Every gaze held a different expectation. The realization hit her hard. She needed to stand not just for her patients but for herself, her journey, her passion, her resolve. As murmurs spread through the crowd, Emily caught sight of the flower seller's hopeful gaze, a mentor of a different kind. Could this be a new beginning, a chance to leverage her passion for art and mental health like never before? Just then, the flower seller pointed out brightly, today's opening is only the beginning. You've sparked something important here. But before Emily could respond with excitement, a colleague stepped forward, arms crossed tightly. Wait, let's not rush ahead. We need to think this through. Can we afford to just leap without clear strategies? Emily's heart sank slightly. Doubt lingered yet again like an unwelcome shadow. Could she truly navigate this juxtaposition of her artistic instincts and the rigid medical framework? Questions loomed as the atmosphere shifted once more, momentum hanging delicately in the air. The path ahead hadn't just opened wide, it had diverged into uncharted territory. What next step would she take? Would she embrace this unexpected alliance with the flower seller, or seek to mold a blueprint that fit within her colleague's skeptic's constraints? As her thoughts spiraled into the unknown, Emily felt the uncertainty beckon her to make a choice. Emily's pulse quickened as the skeptical gaze of her colleague bore down on her, a reminder of the challenges standing in her way. Doubt clawed at her resolve, pulling her momentarily into a familiar mental loop. The contrasting worlds of art and medical practice, the tension between her artistic instincts and the clinical weight of responsibility. What if she failed? What if her passion didn't translate into anything tangible? She had envisioned a bridge between her two loves, art and healing, but that bridge now seemed rusty and rickety, with pieces missing. With a deep breath, She forced her attention back to the room, where murmurs of the crowd circled around her. Their interest hung in the air, a blend of skepticism and curiosity, waiting for her next move. Emily's gaze drifted to the flower seller, who nodded in silent encouragement, a reminder that her words had sparked something profound. "I'll tell you what we can't afford," she ventured, her voice gaining strength with each word. "We can't afford to ignore the brokenness in ourselves and others. We can't afford to dismiss the power of connection. I believe art can do that. Transcend boundaries, touch hearts. I'm not proposing chaos. I'm proposing a new lens through which to view healing." As she spoke, she felt a deep-seated truth taking root within her. She had always known there was more to medicine than pills and protocols. It was about understanding, empathy, and human connection. And somehow, art intertwined with it all. Maria rolled her eyes but didn't interrupt. Emily pushed through, her determined tone cutting through the lingering tension. "Imagine collaborating with our patients through art, allowing them to depict their own stories visually, their experiences through their eyes." For a moment, silence enveloped them, but Emily could sense the inner dialogue churning among her colleagues. At last Maria unfolded her arms, albeit reluctantly. "That sounds ambitious, Emily, but ambition alone won't save lives. You still need a foundation." "What if the foundation is built on stories instead of statistics?" Emily countered, a spark igniting in her. "What if we allowed our patients' voices to guide us, to shape the therapy?" She scanned the faces, searching for understanding. "I'm not asking us to abandon our methods, I'm asking us to enrich them." A hush fluttered through the crowd, and for the first time Emily could see hesitation melting away, curiosity wrestling with caution. Perhaps they were considering the possibility that had been hidden under layers of skepticism. The flower seller chimed in. "Art is all about the journey. If we listen to the narratives of those struggling, we can foster understanding in ways we've never imagined." Her eyes sparkled with hope as she brought the audience back to the essence of their conversation. Just then, Emily felt a flicker of resolve shift deep within her. Perhaps this collision of passion and doubt had opened a door she didn't know existed. Could they brainstorm the implementation of her idea together? Create a pathway that didn't just adjust but disrupted the status quo? "Let's host a workshop," Emily proposed, sensing momentum building. "An initial session where we invite patients to express themselves through art. Together, we can learn what resonates with them and shape a structured approach armed with insights from their experiences." The room erupted in whispers, colleagues exchanging glances, uncertainty still palpable but beginning to transform into intrigue. Emily sensed the tide was turning. Could she drive this momentum forward from an impassioned dreamer to a catalyst for tangible change? But then Maria scoffed. "And if it flops? What's that going to do for your credibility, Emily?" Her words struck a dissonant chord. Emily's mind raced. Coincidentally, confrontation flickered in her gut. Was she willing to risk her reputation for the chance to explore a new therapeutic avenue? In a split second, a choice loomed above her like a towering mountain. Either retreat back to the safe confines of her established role, or charge ahead into a terrain where every possibility sparked a sense of purpose. With every ounce of resolve, Emily chose the latter. "If we never step off the edge, we'll never learn to fly," she replied defiantly. The crowd fell silent, and she felt the weight of their attention rooting for her, her heart racing as she stood amidst flickers of hope and uncertainty. Could this be the moment when her conflicting identities finally merged? The prospect invigorated her, but the trepidation remained. Would her colleagues rally behind her vision? Feeling exposed but invigorated, Emily maintained eye contact, inviting them to see the potential beyond their skepticism. She had a firm grasp on her balance now, but how far would it take her? Little did she know, soon she would have to confront a force even more immovable than Maria, a revelation that would challenge the very foundation of her career. The days that followed were a chaotic blend of excitement and anxiety as Emily returned to her routine. While her colleagues mulled over her proposal, the anticipation weighed on her like a heavy shroud. Each morning she would arrive at the hospital, eager to hear about any discussions that had transpired regarding her idea of fusing art into therapy. But each time, the silence was deafening. She began to question the foundation of her dream. Was her vision merely a fleeting whim, an artist's idealism crashing against the stone walls of medical pragmatism? Emily found herself wandering through the hospital's corridors, feeling like an imposter among the bustling doctors, the beeping machines, and the sterile environment that had once felt like home. One day, as she passed by the hospital's art exhibit, a fresh wave of inspiration coursed through her. The splashes of color and emotion spoken through brushstrokes stirred something ancient within her. Perhaps that was her key, reminding herself why she ventured into medicine in the first place. That evening, she barricaded herself in her modest apartment, determined to outline her workshop as a compelling case. She pored over research articles, stories of patients whose lives had been transformed through alternative therapies. She gathered testimonials from art therapy programs, sketching a plan that aimed not only to connect, but also to heal. But amidst her fervor, seeds of doubt laid deeper roots. Would her colleagues take her seriously? Would they question the validity of it all? What if patients responded negatively? Each setback multiplied in her mind, a gnawing skepticism feeding off her fear. With an imminent deadline for their first meeting looming ahead, Emily decided to approach it with a fearless resolve. She gathered her notes and crafted a coherent pitch, including statistics and emotional appeals to the potential benefits. As she prepared for the meeting, an unexpected visitor knocked at her door. It was the flower seller. "Emily," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with a warm energy that cut through the tension like sunlight. "I heard about your proposal. I just wanted to wish you luck." Emily's heart lifted as she invited the woman inside. Over tea, they unveiled a shared connection, an unspoken understanding that propelled Emily further into her conviction. As they talked, Emily confided her fears, her dreams, and her doubts. The flower seller listened intently, her presence igniting a spark within Emily. "Sometimes all it takes is one seed to grow a garden," she said, a lovely smile spreading across her face. "You have everything you need within you. Just remember, even the strongest flowers started from their own struggles." Emily was struck by the metaphor. She could choose to be the landscape or the flower that fought through the concrete. In that moment, she realized that the true essence of her initiative was not empirical data alone, but the art of storytelling and connectivity. The essence of healing emerged not just from the method, but from the intention behind it. Fueled with new conviction, Emily thanks the flower seller for her encouragement, and decided to weave this newfound perspective into her workshop pitch. She would focus not just on the mechanics, but on the emotional narratives that could emerge. Days later, standing in front of her colleagues, she rekindled that spark of determination. As Emily captivated their attention with passionate tales of healing through connection, she could feel the walls of skepticism begin to fracture. Yet, as she maneuvered through her presentation and opened the floor to their questions, she could sense an unmistakable tension brewing beneath the surface. Maria's voice carried through the crowd. "But what happens when we lose sight of established medical protocols? What's the oversight plan for your workshop?" The echoed skepticism chafed like an open wound. Could she maintain her ground amidst the lingering shadows of doubt? The confrontation directed the air from her sails, and Emily's stomach twisted. The moment had arrived. How she chose to respond would define this journey, not just her role as a doctor, but the very essence of her pursuit for healing. Facing her fear, she stood tall and asked herself, was she ready to challenge the very guidelines that framed her identity? As her heart raced, Emily prepared to articulate her vision not just as a concept, but as a movement, an appeal for empowerment that could redefine the way care was dispensed. But could she withstand the pressure as the stakes escalated? The workshop awaited, but her most challenging decisions still lay ahead. Emily's heart pounded as she stood before her colleagues, the gallery buzzing with tension from the questions that had surfaced. After weeks of anticipation, she was finally ready to unveil not just a workshop, but a revolutionary approach that could redefine the therapeutic landscape. She took a deep breath, recalling the flowering spirit of the passionate flower seller who had inspired her, and gathered her thoughts. "While protocols are essential," Emily began, her voice steadying with conviction, "healing is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Our patients are individuals with unique stories and experiences. I believe integrating art into healing offers them a chance to express what words cannot. It's about forging connections, understanding pain, and ultimately, embracing hope. She locked eyes with Maria, who watched with narrowed suspicion. Pulling strength from every patient, every struggle, every creative soul she had encountered, Emily pressed on. This isn't merely an art class. It's a platform where we engage patients in navigating their experiences through colors and creativity. Imagine a mural representing our patients' voices, echoing throughout our clinic, reminding them they're not alone. A murmur swept through the room. Intrigue flickered among her colleagues. Emily shifted her stance, moving closer to the mural painted in her studio, her emotional culmination, the essence of her journey. This mural is more than paint. It embodies fearless resilience. It's a beacon for healing. Let this workshop foster not just art, but empathy. With each resounding word, she felt her confidence solidify. The initial resistance was starting to shift, and she recognized the power of her passion, becoming a bridge. Would they see what she could see? The potential beauty in combining art and healing. Emily, ensuring emotional boundaries is crucial, one colleague interjected, leaning forward. And how will we handle those who might find expressing their emotions through art confrontational? Great question, she replied, her pulse racing with adrenaline. That's where guidance comes in. We'll incorporate support systems. Trained professionals will facilitate these sessions. We're not abandoning structure. We're enhancing it by employing alternative means of communication. An electric energy ignited the room, the initial doubts melting under the warmth of conviction. Emily began to notice exchanges of glances peppered with cautious optimism. For the first time, they were considering collaborative possibilities rather than obstinate resistance. Let's challenge the norm, she continued, fervor building, and test the boundaries of care. Wouldn't it be remarkable if a simple brushstroke could reflect someone's hidden struggles, if colors could articulate their voices? Our patients deserve these spaces of exploration, and as their advocates, we owe it to them. A brave venture into her colleagues' hearts. She felt her words land. Recognition sparked as she glanced at Michael, the young artist who had shared this journey with her in spirit. His wide-eyed enthusiasm now radiated like a beacon. But Emily, Maria interjected again, her doubt resurfacing. Art doesn't replace therapy. We need to ensure we're not masking critical issues. Art, revealed Maria. It uncovers, Emily countered, emboldened. Consider our patients who struggle to articulate their pain. Art is not an evasion, it's an invitation into their core. It allows those who suffer to actualize their struggles, grieving, healing, and learning. The tension cracking between them felt electric. In that charged moment, Emily recognized she was redefining not just her own conflicting identity, but inspiring the possibility of transformative change within her profession. Finally, she posed another question. Could any of us have imagined that creating community healing spaces could also strengthen our medical practice? A collective pause enveloped the room, glimmers of contemplation swirling in the air. It was then that she understood. This moment was not solely about her. It was about each individual in the room being open to growth, acknowledging their fears, and recognizing the potential for something extraordinary through collaboration. No longer defined by skepticism, they could become active participants in the healing narrative. Silence settled over them, but the changes within the atmosphere were palpable. The hard edges of doubt began softening. Finally, one of the doctors nodded. All right, Emily. I'm willing to explore this. Let's test it out. Cheers of encouragement mingled with astonishment, underlining how this pivotal encounter had shifted the dynamics of their collaboration. Emily exhaled, relief flooding through her. Thank you. Together we'll cultivate a space where art and healing intersect, delivering more than we could have imagined. Hesitance faded into hopeful anticipation as they began outlining the framework for the workshop. This was a shared venture now, a bridge they would build together, knitting the wounds of their profession and those they served. Weeks later, the workshop officially launched, and as they kicked off with the first session, Emily felt a rush of adrenaline run through her. Patients poured in, bringing their stories, and souvenirs of experience awaited to be expressed through various art forms. Each brushstroke that filled the canvas resonated with personal growth, connection, and a shared understanding, creating a mosaic of emotion that flowed through the gallery. At the end of the day, standing before the mural adorned with colorful patches of creative expression, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of triumph. This was her moment, a reflection of everything she had achieved. She had proven that she could embody both the artist and the healer. And then, amidst the laughter and excitement, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, the flower seller, beaming with pride. "I always knew you could do it," she said, her voice rich with warmth. Emily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you for igniting the spark. It all began with your words." As the exhibit continued to grow, Emily reflected on her journey, how fear had been transformed into purpose. She had successfully woven the fabric of her identities into one compelling story. An artist, a doctor, a voice of hope. The distinction between the two no longer existed. Instead, they were flourishing as one. In that softly lit gallery, surrounded by the joyous fulfillment of shared healing, Emily knew she had not just conquered her internal conflict. She had accomplished something infinitely greater, a path to inspire others to bloom, embracing their own authenticity too. Each canvas echoed their evolving stories. She had achieved her legacy, and somehow, in that harmonious blend of art and healing, she had also rediscovered herself. Emily stood there, at peace, certain that this was only the beginning of what was possible. Subscribe immediately to the channel, her passionate heart cried out as the day unfolded. You need to be here for more exclusive emotional stories like this one. Leave a like now and let's feed the algorithm together. Your support matters. Don't wait even one more second to be part of this transformative journey. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion below, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how personal growth can redefine life. Together, let's make change happen.